What is going on, y'all? What's good? What's good? What's good? Just finishing getting set up here. What's going on? How we doing? Go ahead and and put it in the chat. How we feeling today? Give me one word to describe how you're feeling today. Happy, sad, ready to go, motivated, curious. Give me one word in the chat to tell me how you're feeling. Give me one word in the chat to tell me how you're feeling. We got a really good show today. It's going to be a little bit shorter of a stream, but I think we're going to get through some really fun, really engaging topics here. We're going to be talking about Alejandro Balde. We're going to be talking about James Maddison. And Balde will be interesting because that's an injury that happened literally minutes ago, not even an hour ago. And we're going to go ahead and get into it right here. I'll give you guys my preliminary thoughts. But once again, give me one word, put it in the chat. How you feeling? What's going on? Thank you guys for joining this stream today. And as always, send me your questions. If you send me your question on YouTube, y'all, if you're watching on Instagram, this is also on YouTube. And if you watch on YouTube, you can send me your question there and I can put it on the screen for everybody to see. But if you want to go through all that, you can definitely just put it in the Instagram chat and I'll get to it at the end of the show today. But y'all, thank you again for joining the stream today. Let's get into it. We have Alejandro Balde's hamstring. We have James Maddison ankle, but we're going to start with Erling Haaland. Very, very, popular player in the Prem. So we want to make sure we give you guys all the updates on him every single chance we get. So Erling Haaland has been out for the past few weeks with a stress-related injury in his foot. And we actually covered the majority of his injury on our previous stream. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. We have a video just for him. But what we're going to talk about today is his actually returning to training. So he was actually able to return to training. And we're going to go through what the media has recently reported on him. We're going to go through that together. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Let me just pull up his little article here. Erling, where you at, my guy? Erling Haaland, where you at, my guy? Where you at, Erling? There we go. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and share my screen here? And perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull up his most up-to-date. There we go. All right. So Manchester City's Erling Haaland has posted an update. Oh my God, so many ads, man. These ads are out of control these days. Manchester City's Erling Haaland has posted an update on his recovery from a foot injury. The striker has not featured for Pep Guardiola's side since the 1-0 defeat to Aston Villa in early December. He was pictured back at training for the beginning of January on his journey to full fitness. Haaland was also involved in the club's warm weather camp in Abu Dhabi during the winter break. And on Monday, he posted an update on social media hinting he was near a return to action. The Norwegian was pictured lacing his boots along the caption, "Oh, how I have missed this." Well, what exactly is going on in the case of Erling Haaland? Well, we do know that he had a stress-related injury in his foot. And the most common place to get a stress-related injury in the foot is one of two places. You can either get it in the navicular bone or you can get it in the fifth metatarsal. The navicular bone being this one right here, which is very important in terms of weight bearing through the foot, like we discussed in our last stream, or through the fifth metatarsal heel. And my guess is that when Erling Haaland posted that picture with his boots back on, saying that he's missed this so much, is that was actually Erling Haaland's first day back running on flat grass without any sort of assistance. And you may be wondering, well, if he's starting to return to run now on flat grass, how is it that his return might be relatively soon? Well, in the world of elite sport, you have so many tools at your disposal. So it's very likely that Erling Haaland was running on something called a Ultra G treadmill, a treadmill that can actually take your body weight away from you. And instead of running at, let's say Erling Haaland is 200 pounds, you can set the treadmill and be like, hey, I weigh 200 pounds, but off weight me by 50%. So it's really only like I'm running 100 pounds, and that's a lot less force. That force going through your foot is cut in half. You can also do things like bike conditioning. You can do swimming. You can do a rower. You can do an assault bike, all sorts of things to keep your endurance nice and high. So that way, when you return to the pitch, all of that endurance is pretty much worked up, and you just have to fine tune a few things when it comes to on-field specific rehab. So that is the latest for Erling Haaland. I would still be surprised if you see him relatively soon on the pitch, just because he is going to need a very good ramp up. It's not like he's going to be able to train for, a week or two and immediately go back to playing 90 minutes for Manchester City. What I would expect is a very slow ramp up in his training load. And as that training load during training with Guardiola increases every week, you'll see him more and more and more in terms of matches. And of course, Manchester City have all the data and all the tools in the world to be able to track all of that. And hopefully he'll be back soon with minimal to no risk of re-injury. So that is Erling Haaland. That is a very interesting injury, and we'll be sure to continue to follow that case. So if you guys haven't already, be sure to like, follow, subscribe to the channel. And let's get into our next one. James Maddison is back in training, and you guys see that one right there. Best club in England, right there. Arsenal. So we're not too much lovers of Tottenham here on this channel, but we will give you our honest and valuable interpretation on what his injury has been, because I think there could be quite a few things going on specifically with his injury. So let's go ahead and catch ourselves up as to exactly what has been going on in the world of James Maddison and where he might be going from here, because I think we can pick up quite a few clues from this article here. So James Maddison has been out for the last 3 months with a mysterious ankle injury, and a lot of clubs in the Premier League have been a little bit reluctant or hesitant to give the information about the injuries out there to the folks in the media. But of course, what we're going to do on this channel is we're going to go through what is objectively stated in the news, in the media, and we're going to dissect it. We're going to try and read between the lines, and we'll take it from there. So Tottenham confirms James Maddison injury boost ahead of FA Cup showdown with Manchester City. The midfielder has been out for nearly 3 months with an ankle injury. Tottenham have confirmed that James Maddison is back as the midfielder closes in on a return from an ankle injury. The Spurs star has been out of action since his side's chaotic defeat to Chelsea at the start of November, making it the most significant injury he's faced in his career. However, Maddison is on the verge of being involved again, having returned to full training ahead of Spurs' FA Cup fourth-round clash at home to Manchester City on Friday night, which at the recording of this video is in about 48 hours from now. The official Tottenham account has sparked further excitement among fans on Wednesday, posting a picture of Maddison with the captain, "Look who's back," or with the caption. There's a spelling mistake here. "Look who's back." They followed it up with a second image of Maddison in training. Things you love to see. There you go. That's our guy. So what has actually been going on with James Maddison? What has been going on? What could have possibly kept him out for 3 months? Because initially, if you go back and read the initial reports, it was just labeled as a typical ankle injury, which is a little bit minor. Certainly not something that would, have you out for 3 months. So if you start to break it down and you say, hey, what injuries could this have been in the ankle to leave him out for this long? Well, there's actually quite a few. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the possibilities, and we'll take it from there. So if you look at the ankle, let's look at it from the side here. These are the bones of the ankle. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is zoom in just a little bit, and I'm going to add the ligaments of the ankle as well. So there are a ton of ligaments all around here. And of course, with that, there comes a ton of possibilities for exactly what was going wrong with James Maddison. If we remove this guy right here, this is something called a retinaculum. It kind of sits over a lot of the deeper ligaments here. Typically, when you have a standard ankle sprain, it's a strain of something called the ATFL, this ligament right here, which helps keep the outer bone on your lower leg attached to the rest of your foot. When people, quote unquote, roll their ankle, or people have a minor sprain to their ankle, chances are it's this ligament right here. And about, I would say 60 to 70% of the time, it's going to be that guy. As these ankle ligament injuries get more and more severe, what happens is additional ligaments are often damaged in addition to this one here. In particular, you have two more called the TFL and the CTFL, sorry, and the fibular, this guy right here, the PTFL. And these ligaments help stabilize the outer portion of the ankle. But I don't think this was the case with James Maddison, because typically, if you have a tear of two or more of those ligaments, it is pretty obvious to whoever's doing the diagnostics, because there's a lot of swelling, you have a lot of bruising, it's difficult to walk, yada, yada, yada. And typically it's pretty blatantly clear. And even if you do have a tear of all these three ligaments, it's pretty obvious. And typically that timeline is given to the media and the player and the coaching staff well in advance. But there are other ankle injuries that can be a little bit hidden, that can be a little bit tougher to diagnose, and that also match up with James Maddison's timeline. In particular, you have something called a high ankle sprain. So a high ankle sprain is a sprain of the ligaments that are higher up in the ankle. So again, this ligament here, and this ligament here, they're all typical ligaments of the ankle that are lower down. If you actually move up, you have a few more ligaments that help keep the lower leg intact together, being the shin bone and the fibula, which is on the outside of your leg. And these bones are important these ligaments are important because they help keep this bone here, the tibia, and this bone here, the fibula, attached together. Because what happens if those two ligaments do not hold the bones of the lower leg together, those bones can drift apart. And that is not a good thing. That is what's considered an unstable high ankle sprain. And that does require significant rehab and medical attention. And a lot of those times, those injury timelines match up well with James Maddison's, which was about 3 months out of action. Typically, you're able to either go down one of two paths. You can go down a surgical route where hardware is put in to make sure those two bones really stay together. Or if it's stable enough, those ligaments can heal on their own. So that is likely what was going on with James Maddison. Of course, we cannot be certain because nothing was given to us, but based off of the initial injury and based off the reporting after that injury and the timeline that's happened since then, if I had to kind of guess what's going on, I would say it would be that. But guys, of course, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share everything that you're seeing here with your friends, with your teammates, with your coaches. So that way every player out there can educate themselves on exactly what is going on in the human body, what is going on when it comes to injury, in particular in the soccer world. Last but not least, our final injury of the day, Alejandro Balde has torn his hamstring. And guys, this injury happened just moments ago, I believe less than an hour ago. Barcelona were playing Athletic Bilbao in a Copa del Rey knockout match. I believe it was the quarterfinal. And Alejandro Balde came off with a hamstring injury relatively early within the match. I'm just looking to see the exact minute here. It was minute 23. Minute 23 of the match, and he was forced off the pitch. He was able to walk off, but he was seen grabbing his hamstring. He was in tears. Not a great sight to see considering how young of a player he is. But we're going to get into it and we're going to see exactly what muscles might be injured, what the possibilities might be. And of course, we will track this injury from start to finish. So if you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and you guys will be able to see all of that in real time. So let's go ahead and pull up the actual hamstring here and we will go through the latest update together and we will take it from there. So major blow for Barcelona as a key player forced off with a serious looking hamstring injury against Athletic Club. It has been a terrible start for Barcelona in the Copa del Rey quarterfinal clash at Athletic Club in San Mamés. They fell behind after 36 seconds, yada, yada, yada. Things got worse in the early stages too, as Alejandro Balde was forced off with a serious-looking injury. The young defender was chasing a ball on the left flank when he pulled up sharpish before falling to the ground, clutching his right hamstring. He immediately asked to be substituted and looked to be in a great deal of pain when leaving the field of play. So what exactly was going on with Balde? What muscles might have been injured? Let's go ahead and get to it. So let's go ahead and zoom out here. And let's go ahead and zoom in on our favorite muscle group, the hamstring. So we're going to be reviewing this diagram on this channel a lot because hamstring muscle injuries are super common in the world of soccer. In particular, they're super common specifically for this muscle right here. Guys, did you know the hamstring actually has 3 muscles? The hamstring has 3 muscles. You have your biceps femoris here, you have your semi-tendinosus here, and your semi-membranosus here. And most of the time in soccer players, it's going to be this big beefy guy right here, the biceps femoris. And although FC Barcelona have not given any update to us at the recording of this video, typically if a player immediately drops to the ground and they're having difficulty walking, that is a pretty significant sign that it is likely at least a grade 2 injury. That is a typical sign that is at least a grade 2 injury. So what exactly does that mean? There are different grades that we give to muscles when there is an injury, and that grade is determined on A, where the location is in the muscle, and B, how much of the muscle fibers were damaged as a result of the injury. So if you have what's called a grade 1 injury, and I'm going to go ahead and outline the hamstring muscle here in yellow, so you guys can see it pretty clearly. Typically, if you have what's called a grade 1 injury, that means only a small percentage of the muscle fibers were torn. So if you look at it, maybe it's a tear kind of like that, where it's only a very small portion of the hamstring muscle. With this, some players are able to actually finish the game. Some players have only minor pain and are able to finish the game. They'll have no pain with walking. Typically, when you take a look at their hamstring, they have full mobility. They don't really have swelling or bruising or anything like that. Now, if a muscle grade injury is higher, let's say a grade 2, instead of a small percentage of the fibers being torn, it's typically up to around 50%. Somewhere between 0 and 50% of the muscle fibers being torn. And that tear might result in some bruising. It might result in some loss of range of motion. It might result in some swelling, and it will almost definitely result in the player not being able to finish the match. Now, the difference between a grade 1 and a grade 2 in terms of timeline is somewhat relatively similar. Typically, a grade 1 injury in soccer, it's anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. And for a grade 2, it's anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. So there is quite a bit of overlap in those 2 injuries. And it's going to be very, very important for Balde to come back to complete full fitness before going back to playing, because as part of his position as a fullback, he's going to have to do a lot of work in terms of running, in terms of sprinting, in order to keep up with the game. And in particular, what happens a lot is these fullbacks, there we go, is these fullbacks have to be able to sprint for hard and long distances. And these long sprints up and down the flank is often what predisposes these players to hamstring injury. There is a stat on GPS called high speed running. It's very similar to sprinting, except the threshold is a little bit lower. And if you do a lot of high speed running, if you do a lot of runs that are up and down the flank, those numbers are going to be very, very high. And the more those numbers swing up and down, the more your player is at risk for injury. So obviously for Balde as a left back, being able to return to full fitness is going to be involving a lot of sprint work, a lot of high-speed running, a lot of accelerations, decelerations. So typically in this position, it takes just a little bit longer for a player to return to full health after injury as compared to, let's say, a center midfielder or a center back. So that is it for Alejandro Balde. But we're actually going to get into this question right here. One of our listeners sent me a question asking, Andy, how do I improve my shot power? How do I improve the amount of strength that is in my legs in order to shoot the ball with more power? In particular, which exercises should I be doing on a regular basis to make sure my shot power is as hard as it possibly could be? And I'm actually really happy that I got this question from one of my listeners, because it's something that's very common. And I think it's something that really needs to look at through multiple lenses. So the number one thing, and this is very contradictory to what the nature of this channel is, but the number one thing you can do as a player to improve your shot power is going to be improve your shooting technique. The number one thing you can do as a player to improve your shot power is going to be improve your technique. Now, the question for that is why? Each of the muscles of the lower extremity have so much power. And what you need to shoot the ball with a lot of power is each of those muscles working at their highest capability all together. And as many exercises that you do in the gym, let's say you do squats, let's say you do lunges, let's say you do plyometrics, yada, 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 there is no exercise that can replicate the timing and the specificities of the muscles that need to be activated in order for you to shoot together like shooting. And this has actually been somewhat proven through science. And what we're going to do is we're going to review an article together that kind of outlines exactly why this is. So let's go ahead and open this up, because what this article did is it actually compared ball kicking velocity with leg strength, both inside and outside of the game of soccer. So let's go ahead and share this with you guys here. So relationship between ball kick velocity and leg strength, a comparison between soccer players and other athletes. If you guys like, you can go ahead and just simply look up the name of this article. You can read the whole thing on your own, but we are going to skip to the good and juicy stuff that is at the end of this summary here. This study compared soccer players with non-soccer players with respect to the relationship between ball velocity due to an instep kick and various leg strength. So what does that mean? It means everybody was doing an instep kick, and players of different leg strengths were compared to see if a player with stronger legs versus a player with weaker legs, which one of them would have a stronger instep kick velocity, which one of them will kick the ball harder, which one of them will allow the ball to travel faster. What they found was obviously the ball velocities from soccer players were faster than that of non-soccer players. But what they also found is that if you compare within the group, if you compare soccer players to other soccer players, there was close to no correlation between how strong your leg is and how hard you actually kick the ball. There was close to no correlation between how strong your leg is and how hard you actually kick the ball. Why? Well, why is that? Well, obviously, what they didn't do in this study was compare the technique of each of the kickers, because that really wasn't the scope of it. But it's very clear and obvious that what sets the strongest soccer players in terms of shot power apart is their technique. That's why if you look at a player like Bruno Fernandes, who's relatively small, relatively skinny, his shot power is out of this world because he's an extremely technical player. He's probably spent a lot of time working on his shot and his technique and everything like that, which is why his shot power is probably stronger than that of, let's say, Adama Traore, who has tree trunks for legs, right? And this is often why players, in terms of shot power, it improves with age. Because as you get older and older, you spend more and more time working on your technique, and you're able to refine it, and that's able to sustain you over the course of a career. Now, that doesn't mean you don't go to the gym. That doesn't mean you don't work on your quads. That doesn't mean you don't work on your hamstrings, your glutes, your hips, your hip flexors, everything like that. Because what the real magic happens is when you take a player with exceptional technical ability, who has spent the time, the weeks, the years, the long days out after training, working on their shot power, who has almost perfected their technique, where the real magic happens is when you take a player like that and you give them the raw strength and power that they need to execute their shot with the highest velocities. Well, when you put those two together, is when you take someone with strong legs and perfect technique, you get a player like Erling Haaland, who's able to shoot the ball with ferocious velocity. You get a player like Cristiano Ronaldo, who, if you look at his long free kicks, okay, they might not be the most accurate, but they certainly have power. You get a player like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who's insanely strong, but also insanely powerful. So if you're a player out there and you want to improve your shot power, my number one piece of advice would be work on your technique, work on your technique, and work on your technique. And while you're doing that, work in the gym. And when I say work on your technique, I mean get advice from the people who know how to improve your technique the best. Talk to your coaches, talk to your private trainers, talk to your past coaches, even go on YouTube, see what other people, kind of think and do, and see if you can implement any of that into your game. But there is no magic exercise. There's no magic exercise out there that you can do for 8 to 12 weeks that'll turn your shot from slow into a rocket. It just doesn't happen. So, guys, send me your questions. Let's go ahead. We're going to go through all the questions that we have right here. We're going to see what we got. There's none on YouTube, so we're going to go through the Instagram comments and see what we got. Let's see what we got here. Oscar Zamora says, what degree did you finish with to be a physio? Well, it depends on the country that you're in. Here in the United States, now you have to have a doctorate to become a physical therapist. So I went to undergrad for 4 years, and then I went to graduate school for 3 years, and I did kind of like an optional year called a residency, where you kind of specialize in the field that you want to go in. And so, yeah, it took me about 7 to 8 years to really enter the sports physio space. X3 Hector says, how are Barcelona fans feeling is the real question. Not surprised. Not surprised. That team needs help. That team is a mess. We got to play better. And Balde being out with this injury is not good for us at all as well. Let's see what other questions we got here. How can you avoid injuries like this? Chris Puelas, I don't know what injury you're referring to, so I'll kind of go through injuries in general. When it comes to injuries in general, you have to make sure that you have a solid and strong strength and conditioning program. And you have to make sure that your load management is correct. And you have to make sure that you have a right mentality when it comes to things like recovery. And the basics of recovery are eating right, are sleeping correctly, and are properly hydrating. If you can focus on those three things, being recovery, being strength and conditioning, and being load management, that is the optimal case for you to avoid injury in the future. Let's see what other questions we got. And that seems to be it. So, guys, thank you for joining on this stream today. As always, be sure to share this video with a teammate, share it with your coaches, and of course, like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we will see y'all on Sunday. So, peace and love. I'll catch you then.